The power of silence isn't just a lack of noise, it's a psychological weight that shifts the entire dynamic of a relationship. When you go quiet, you aren't just stopping a conversation, you're creating a void that she is forced to fill. Most men are terrified of the quiet. They think if they aren't constantly talking, texting, or reminding her of their existence, they will be forgotten. But the opposite is true. When you are always there, you become background noise, predictable, safe, and easily ignored. When you step back and go silent, you become a mystery. You move from being a constant presence she manages to a puzzle she has to solve. She doesn't just notice that you're gone, she feels the sudden drop in pressure. That heavy silence rings louder in her ears than 1,000 desperate text messages ever could. The brutal truth is that your absence has a voice, and right now, it's screaming. When you stop the chase, her mind immediately goes into overdrive. Humans are naturally wired to seek closure and patterns, so when you break the pattern of your constant attention, her brain starts seeking answers. Where did he go? Why isn't he checking in? What changed? By withdrawing, you stop being the one who is pursuing and start being the one who is being wondered about. This isn't about playing games. It's about demonstrating a level of self-control that most men simply don't possess. It shows that your life does not revolve around her validation. It proves that you have the internal strength to walk away from the table when respect or interest isn't being served. This shift is jarring because it's so rare. If you've ever felt like you're the only one putting in the effort, or if you felt your value dropping the more you try to please her, this is your turning point. Withdrawal is the ultimate display of high value. It signals that your time, your energy, and your words are expensive assets that are no longer available for free. Once you stop the noise, she has to sit with her own thoughts, and in that stillness, she begins to realize exactly what she's missing. You are no longer a given, you are a choice. Once you truly master the art of being comfortable in the silence, the power dynamic flips completely. You stop being the one begging for a seat at the table and become the one who decides who gets to sit at yours. This is how you stop chasing and start being the man she can't stop thinking about. 1. The ego reacts first in today's world. Attention is the ultimate currency, and for most women, it is as common as the air they breathe. Between social media notifications, DMs, and constant stares in public, validation has become a background noise they barely even register anymore. It is a constant stream of "you're beautiful, I want you, and I'm here." Because this attention is so consistent, it feels guaranteed. Most men make the mistake of becoming a permanent fixture in that stream, always available, always liking, and always chasing. But the moment you suddenly pull away and cut off that supply, the silence doesn't just feel quiet, it feels like an insult. Her ego is the first thing to wake up, and it wakes up angry. She isn't thinking about her feelings for you yet. She is thinking about her power over you. When you go silent, the internal dialogue in her head shifts from "he's so into me" to "wait, why hasn't he reached out?" The ego cannot stand a mystery it can't solve. She'll start checking her phone more often, wondering if her service is down or if you've simply forgotten her. This is the stage where the mask comes out. To protect her pride, she will likely go on the offensive. You'll see her posting more frequently photos where she looks incredible, stories of her out with friends, or vague quotes meant to show she's unbothered. Understand that this is a performance for an audience of one, you. She is trying to bait you into breaking the silence because the ego hates being ignored far more than the heart hates being hurt. By staying silent, you're effectively taking her off the pedestal she didn't even realize she was sitting on. You aren't just a guy she knows anymore. You're the one man who isn't feeding her ego, and that makes you the only thing she can think about. 2. The test of patience, once the initial shock to her ego settles, she won't just come running back with an apology. Instead, she's going to test your resolve. This is a critical phase of female psychology that most men completely misinterpret. She needs to know if your silence is a sign of true strength or just a temporary tantrum. To find out, she will poke and prod at your patience. She might intentionally take hours or days to reply to a message if you finally do send one, or she might view every single one of your stories while refusing to actually interact. She may even go as far as posting bait photos with other guys or nights out at places you used to go together, just to see if she can get a rise out of you. She is looking for a crack in your armor. She wants to see if you are the type of man who crumbles under the pressure of being ignored. Most men fail this test miserably. They see the bait, they feel the anxiety of losing her, and they snap. They send that long, emotional, we need to talk text, or they demand to know why she's being distant. The second you do that, you lose. You've just handed her all the power back on a silver platter because you proved that your silence was fake. You showed her that she can control your emotions just by pushing a few buttons. But if you stay calm and remain unmoved by her tactics, the entire dynamic shifts. When her tests fail to get a reaction, she begins to panic. She starts wondering, why isn't this working? Every other guy would have cracked by now. Is he actually over me? This is the moment your value skyrockets. By passing the test of patience, you prove that you are a man of high value who doesn't fold. You become the exception to the rule, and in her mind, that makes you the only man worth chasing. 3. Curiosity becomes obsession. The human brain is naturally wired to solve puzzles, and when you go silent, you become the biggest puzzle in her life. This is because the mind absolutely hates a vacuum. When there is a lack of information, the imagination rushes in to fill the gaps. When you were constantly texting and calling, she knew exactly where you were, what you were thinking, and how much you cared. There was no room for her to wonder because you provided all the answers before she even had a chance to ask the questions. But the moment you stop providing that data, her mind goes into overdrive. She'll lie in bed at night staring at the ceiling, wondering if you're out with someone else, if you've finally realized you're too good for her, or if you've simply moved on without a second thought. Because she doesn't know the truth, her mind will create a dozen different versions of the truth, and most of them will make you look more attractive, more mysterious, and more desirable than ever before. This is the stage where basic curiosity evolves into a full-blown obsession. In the quiet, you aren't just a guy she used to talk to, you become a ghost that haunts her thoughts. She stops missing the literal you, the person with flaws and everyday habits, and starts craving the feeling you provided. She misses the thrill of the chase, the heat of the connection, and the validation of your attention. Because you aren't there to provide a reality check, her imagination begins to polish your image until you seem perfect. Your absence actually begins to take up more mental space than your presence ever did. By doing absolutely nothing, you have successfully occupied the lead role in the movie playing inside her head. You are winning the battle for her attention not by shouting for it, but by being the only thing she can have. The more she tries to figure you out, the deeper she falls into the trap of her own making. 4. The rewind phase silence acts like a time machine for her emotions. When you are always available and on call, she lived entirely in the present, which meant she took you for granted. She didn't have to value your time or your words because she knew more were coming in 5 minutes. But when the present becomes empty and silent, she is forced to go backward. She enters the rewind phase, where her mind begins to replay your history like a highlight reel. She'll start scrolling through old messages, rereading things you said months ago, and analyzing every detail of your last few interactions. She isn't just remembering you, she is dissecting you. She's looking for clues she might have missed, trying to find the exact moment this switch flipped. In this state of silence, her brain becomes your best defense attorney. This is where the power of nostalgia works in your favor. Psychology tells us that over time, the human brain tends to filter out negative experiences and amplify the positive ones. While you're silent, she begins to forget the petty arguments, the times you were annoyed, or the mundane parts of the relationship. Instead, she exaggerates the good times. She remembers the way you laughed, the way you looked at her, and the moments where the chemistry was electric. Because you aren't there in the present to be annoying or boring, the version of you that lives in her memory becomes flawless. You are letting her own mind do the selling for you, and trust me, her imagination is a much better salesman than you could ever be. A desperate text message in the present looks weak and needy, but a filtered, nostalgic memory of you from 3 months ago looks absolutely perfect. By staying quiet, you allow her to fall back in love with the best version of you. 5. The comparison trap in a world where everyone is screaming for attention. The man who stays silent becomes the most interesting person in the room. You have to understand that a woman's phone is usually a battlefield of desperation. She's constantly being bombarded with DMs, likes, and good morning texts from men who are terrified of losing her interest. To her, this constant stream of validation is cheap because it's everywhere. It's predictable, it's low value, and quite frankly, it's exhausting. When you suddenly go quiet, you exit that crowded arena of thirsty men and move into a league of your own. You aren't competing with them anymore. In fact, they're actually working for you. Every time another guy sends her a double text or likes her photo within seconds of her posting it, he is reminding her of what she doesn't like: neediness. By contrast, your silence makes you look composed, grounded, and emotionally independent. You become the rare black swan in a sea of identical, desperate men. This creates a massive, undeniable shift in your perceived value. High value things are never easy to access, they're exclusive and rare. By withholding your attention, you're signaling that your time and energy are expensive assets that aren't handed out to just anyone. She begins to notice the stark difference between the noise in her inbox and the silence from you. She starts to ask herself, why is every other guy bending over backward to please me while he's perfectly fine on his own? This comparison is brutal for her because it makes the other men look weak and makes you look like the prize. You don't have to say a single word to win this competition. You just have to let the other men continue to be desperate while you remain unbothered. Your silence becomes a symbol of your strength, and in her eyes, that makes you the most valuable man she knows. 6. Questioning her own value. This is the point where the silence stops being a curiosity and starts cutting deep into her psyche. Most women, especially those who are used to a high level of attention, walk through life with the internal belief that they are the ultimate prize. They are used to being the ones who decide when a conversation starts or ends. But when you stay silent, you shatter that illusion of total control. Her thoughts begin to turn inward, and she starts questioning the one thing she's usually most confident in: her own value. She'll start thinking, am I not attractive enough to keep him hooked? Did I say something that made him lose interest? Is there another woman who is better than me? This triggers a deep-seated fear of being replaceable. It's a psychological law that humans only truly value what feels scarce. If your attention is always available, it has no value. But when you take it away, it becomes the one thing she feels she needs to win back. This internal doubt is what eventually forces her to break. She can only handle the silence for so long before she feels the need to test her own standing in your life. This is why she'll eventually reach out with something completely random or a weak excuse. Maybe she'll ask a question about a movie you mentioned weeks ago or send a "oops, wrong person" text. Do not be fooled. These aren't accidents. These are probes designed to see if she still has a hold on you. She's looking for a quick hit of validation to prove to herself that she's still the prize. If you rush in and give her that validation immediately, the mystery is gone and she wins. But if you stay steady, remain brief, and keep your distance, you force her to work harder. She stops chasing you just for the sake of attention and starts chasing you to prove her worth to herself. You have successfully flipped the script. You are no longer the one trying to be good enough for her. She is now the one trying to be good enough for you. 7. From resistance to respect, the final and most transformative stage of this cycle is the birth of genuine respect. In the beginning, she likely resisted your silence with anger, confusion, or games, thinking she could eventually break you. She expected you to fold like every other man she's ever dealt with. But as the days turn into weeks and you remain unmoved, her resistance begins to crumble and is replaced by a profound realization. You have something that 99% of men lack, and that is absolute discipline. Most men are slaves to their emotions. They feel a spark of anxiety and they text. They feel a moment of loneliness and they call. They are predictable and easily manipulated by their own needs. When you stay silent, you are demonstrating a level of emotional mastery that is incredibly rare. You are proving that you are the master of your own impulses, and that kind of strength is the most intoxicating thing a man can possess. It is a fundamental truth of human nature that respect is the bedrock of all lasting attraction. Without respect, any love or interest she has for you is shallow and temporary. By holding your ground and refusing to beg for her attention, you are communicating a message that is louder than any words. You do not need her approval to feel whole. You are showing her that while you may want her, you certainly do not need her, and your happiness isn't a hostage to her whims. This creates a massive shift in her perception of you. You go from being just another guy to being a man of high character and formidable will. She begins to see you as a leader, someone who can navigate the storms of his own emotions without crashing. This respect changes the way she speaks to you, the way she looks at you, and the way she values your presence. Once this level of respect is established, real, raw attraction begins to take root. It's no longer about surface level games or matching energy. It's about her recognizing that you are a man of substance. She realizes that she cannot control you, and ironically, that lack of control is exactly what makes her crave you more. Women aren't truly attracted to men they can walk over. They're attracted to the man who has the strength to stand his ground even when it's uncomfortable. Your silence proves that you have a life, a mission, and a set of standards that are more important than a fleeting text message. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard, and you don't need to explain yourself to be understood. Your silence has already done the heavy lifting, proving your worth and securing your position as a man of value. You haven't just won the argument, you've won her respect, and once you have that, you have everything.